Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming tonight. I'm going to turn this over to Nick. He's going to go through the budget, give you all a breakdown, and then as normal at the end, we'll be certainly open to questions. And with that, I'll hand it over to Nick to give us all the information.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Nick Bernier, your friendly Director of Finance and Operations for Southwick Holland Granville Regional School District. Tonight, we're going to be presenting to you a level serviced budget, okay, representing what it would cost to keep our services completely as they are now, moving into next year, factoring in, cost increases and collective bargaining agreement increases, things like that. The numbers in here are going to mirror what was presented to the full school committee on March 2nd, a couple of weeks ago. All right, so a little bit of information about the state's budget. Can anyone not hear me? Unfortunately, we don't have mics tonight. Am I talking loud enough? All right. So the governor's budget came out at the end of January, as it always does. Chapter 70 funding is more or less flat. Right now, the minimum per pupil increase is $75. Will it go higher? Maybe, probably, but where that ends up, there's really no telling. That's their starting point anyway. The town's Chapter 70 funding is the same as last year for Southwick and Granville regarding the vocational students. So those numbers mirror last year's. So you're held harmless, I guess. The question had come up a couple of times if the towns were going to be held harmless for that. And I got two different answers from two different people when I inquired about it. And, you are. So now we have our answer. The required local minimum contribution for the three towns combined for the school district is going to increase by $581,546 over this current year. You'll see the breakdown later of each town. Projected regional transportation reimbursements coming in about $720. Rural aid right now is $20 million for the whole state. Okay, now this is what I would consider the most fickle part of the budget. A couple of years ago, there was a study done about what it would cost to educate students in rural districts across the state, and they came up with a figure of $60 million per year. It's never been higher than 16. Okay, 2 years ago it was 16. This year it went down to 12, which that hurt. That cost about $91,000 this year that we didn't anticipate. Not good, because they take that 12 million and they disseminate it to about 63 different districts across the state, and it's based on population density and enrollment and various factors. So we ended up coming in about 91,000 less than we thought. Choice and charter tuitions increased quite a bit, about 251,000. And our foundation enrollment decreased by 24 students, down to 1180. Our projected enrollment for next year shows a decrease of another 22 students. That's our actual attending enrollment, not our foundation enrollment. So that's a little state level stuff. Just a review of the timeline of our budget process. We're obviously at March 18th now. School committee may not vote on the budget on March 23rd. That's to be determined at this point, because last year this public hearing was held a week earlier, and there was a little bit more time to process things. And we are meeting with the school committee finance subcommittee tomorrow morning to kind of debrief and go over any feedback we get tonight. So the committee itself may not be ready for a full vote on Monday. If not, it would be the following Monday, March 30th, because it's got to be done prior to April 1 to get the warrant articles to the town. So just a little update on that. Sometime in April, the next iteration of the state budget will be released. And then finally in May, there'll be the town meetings, as every year they are. A couple important things we're focusing on next year. I don't know, Aaron, if you want to chime in for a second on these, just to let the group know.
Yeah, so we have undergone a huge change in how we teach reading, following the science of reading. It's something that is all over the news. You see a lot about early literacy bills passing through our legislature. We have been on the forefront of that. We began our science and reading push really during COVID. At the end of COVID, we were already started when most people were just figuring it out. So we're at a place now where we can start to move into taking what we know about the science of reading and incorporating it for the next few years into how we teach writing. The other initiative we have is called MTS, Multi-Tier System of Supports. That's really examining our Tier 1 instruction across the district and ensuring that 80% of our students are responding to that and are at grade level. That is something that we, again, have been working towards and will continue to work on implementation of.
Thanks, Aaron. I think the PowerPoint's open if you hover over that, Amanda, and go back to, yeah. All right, thanks, Aaron. All right, over time, our foundation enrollment has decreased quite a bit. You see this graphic every year, and it continues to decrease. I mean, from FY13 to 27, 15-year time period, you're down a lot of students. Is that a Southwick, Tallinn, Granville regional problem specifically? No, that's a statewide trend. Across the state, about 15,000 fewer students are in the foundation enrollment for next year. That's a lot. So this is something that many, many districts are experiencing for different reasons. Your foundation enrollment by town over the last couple of years, you can see Southwick has netted 56 fewer students in the course of that 3-year period. Tallinn, 11 students, in Granville, 10. If you compare this year to next year, Southwick goes down 30 students, Tallinn goes down 3, and Granville actually gains 10. I wasn't expecting that, actually. I was kind of, surprised by that, but it's still over time, we are losing students. All right, now on to the, the budget number pieces. You have this paper. This is just the budget summary sheet. It shows the revenues, projected revenues on top, which balance with the expenditures on the bottom. On the top, your revenues are generated, largely by assessments from the towns. Medicaid reimbursement's a piece of it. I wanted to decrease that a little bit because, the current federal government and what they may do. What they may do with Medicaid, I don't know, so I don't want to overshoot that revenue projection. I mentioned the regional transportation reimbursement piece. Chapter 78, it's pretty flat. I mean, you see a nominal increase there, but that doesn't keep up with the cost of, educating students from year to year. Your charter school tuition reimbursement goes up slightly because there's more students in charter schools than last year. Our suggested use of E&D would be $650 because we certified 936 this year. We used 900 in this current year, but we certified almost 1.2 last year. So, we had the capability to do that. Only certifying 936, I don't know how comfortable I am going really much higher than 650 because if something happens, we do need some money to fix it. And things do break, as you know. Local tuition, that's pre-K tuition stays the same. Fee charges decrease because the district no longer hosts a hockey team. And that would be the user fees from the hockey players. That's what that decrease is. So we come up with, the revenue we need to balance our expenditures. You'll see the change from this year or last year to this year over in this column right here, the increases and decreases in various spots. The reason why the employee benefits, that's a huge increase. That's really largely health insurance. Tuition, I had already noted the school choice and charter. The rest of it's vocational tuition for our CTEC students. Transportation doesn't actually go up that much. That's something that usually goes up a lot, but didn't this year. Or I'm sorry, maintenance I was looking at didn't go up that much. That's a lot of that salaries. Transportation actually goes down due to having one fewer special ed route in the LPVEC budget. So that went down. Let's see, technology lease up slightly because we have to lease some more devices next year. Debt service increases because of the borrowing we did this year for the boiler design and studies, the 323,000. So we'll start paying that back next year. And then you'll see the building and special education lines go up pretty significantly. Most of that is salary. You would have seen that in the general administration line last year because we were in the process of negotiating and all that money was living in salary reserve last year. Next year, because we're not currently negotiating, our bargaining, contracts are settled with the exception of food service. So all that salary is known for next year, provided our workforce remains as is now. So, we can do those salary projections. So they move to the school and special ed lines rather than in the general administration. At the bottom, you'll see the use of grants and some revolving funds. We do our best to project what we're going to get in federal grant money, but we never actually get the allocations until sometimes July. With the federal government climate currently, we don't want to project too high. I mean, the grants are funded next year. The federal government did come to a reconciliation package, but they then disseminated among the 50 states based on low income populations and special ed populations. So the state of Massachusetts gets a different amount every year. And then the districts also get a different amount every year based on your student population. So circuit breaker, we do propose increasing quite a bit. That's special ed reimbursement funds, but we have the funds to do it right now. I mean, we year after year, we do use what we have to offset the budget. Sometimes it's more E&D, sometimes it's more school choice. This year it happens to be more circuit breaker because we got extraordinary relief last year, and they fully funded special ed transportation for the first time ever, which increased what we got. So we've got the money there. That's the one we want to use more this year, or going into next year, I should say. And then rural aid. I don't want to hope for any more than 257,000 based on what happened this year. Hopefully it comes in higher because that helps immensely, but I think we have to be smart in how we tackle this based on what happened this year. All right, so a couple adjustments, throughout the process. I had to add about $84,000 of grant funded staff to the general fund to cover some of those projected grant shortfalls. Otherwise we're going to be, losing staff members. I added the whole charter/choice tuition increase. We have to. I mean, we have to pay for those students to go where they're going. I did remove 40,000. That's about what it costs to have an ice hockey team between the coaches and the ice rental and, the transportation and all the different pieces. All right, so our FY26 approved budget sits at $28,929,812. Our proposed 27 budget sits at $30,383,805, which is a 5.03% increase over this year's budget. This does not include any additions, okay? It's important to note that this really just represents a level service budget. It's taking a picture of our staff and our services now and moving it a year forward based on projected costs. If this figure has to lower, it would result in reductions. There's not a lot of other funding sources to be moving things to at this point. And just to remind everybody, we did reduce 8 positions in this current year. So the current budget that we're living in is 8 positions less than what we had a year ago. All right, a little more detail on the revenue, I guess, the revenue breakdown. So you can see the comparison between this year and next year. The required minimum locals go up quite a bit. Chapter 70, it looks like a lot, but it's really not. Medicaid, I told you I don't want to really go high on that because we're not sure about the federal government. The transportation's lower because we have fewer students. Charter went up because we have more kids in charter schools. E&D, I've already referenced that, along with the local tuition and the fees. The capital paybacks are down here, the debt service. The $12,000 building use fee that gets assessed to Southwick is in there. The transportation assessment, for all of our different transportations. And then the vocational transportation at the bottom is the two runs that we have for the WTA and the Smith vocational students. They were assessed this year, even though they're not bringing students to our schools. They just, we assess the towns for them, and that way the kids get to where they need to go. If the towns want to continue that arrangement next year, that's what the cost would be. I mean, it doesn't really go up that much. And towns are certainly free to seek their own transportation methods if they wish, but I haven't heard that the current one is not working well, so I just assume it will continue. All right, so your required minimum locals, okay? Now the enrollment again, it's down 24 students from this year to next year. By town, okay, Southwick's goes up 471,698 from this current year. Granville's goes up 137,307, and Tolland's goes down 27,459. And that's strictly based on enrollment right there. Over time, though, even though those minimum locals look like they're going up a lot, over time, we've relied on pretty much a $500,000 figure for the last few years. And then last year, negative 300,000. And that was a result of the vocational students moving from the school district budget to the town budgets. Which made sense because it was such a huge enrollment swing. But not only in this current year did we not get the normal 500,000, we lost 300,000. So that's like an $800,000 swing right there. So this coming year, yeah, it goes back up, but you're still kind of digging out of the hole that was created this year. And, it does take a few years to recover from that. Your town assessments, okay, I've included last year's, this year's, and what next year's would look like should a level service budget pass. From this year to next year, Southwick's would go up about 1.3, Tolland's would go down 11,433, and Granville's would go up 273,440. You could see the percentage changes. Southwick goes up about 9.26, Tolland down 2.87, Granville up 13. Which looks like a lot for Granville, for sure. But Granville's went down between 25 and 26. So that's kind of making up for it, if you will, because of the, the big drop that happened this year. And what this all boils down to, and you'll hear this at any public budget hearing in a rural school district, is that the revenue we can pull in does not keep up with the costs of running buildings and, having a full service, full staff and providing all the services that we want to, providing the highest quality education that we can to the students. It's just the state aid particularly does not keep up with it, especially with the current Chapter 70 formula. It's because it's really enrollment based. Which to an extent it has to be. You can't give a district with 1,000 kids, $400 million a year. That would make no sense at all, right? But having too much of it being enrollment based and some of the assumptions that they build into it, it doesn't keep up with the cost. The inflation factor is not high enough, really. It doesn't, health insurance, staff salary increases, it doesn't keep up with it. Enrollment drops, but buildings still have to run. We still need principals. We still need counselors. We still need many teachers, many support staff members. We still need to fix things. We need to heat the buildings. The list can go on and on and on. While we may have fewer kids in the seats, all those other things still need to happen. And, there's only so much you can cut before services really start getting impacted. And, you get to the point where you're not providing the quality education that you want to. And that only encourages more students to leave and go to different places. Exhausting E&D and school choice funds leaves us exposed. We use what we can, but if we have like a huge thing that breaks that we need to fix, if we want to avoid going to the towns to try to get the funding for that, we have to have something there to be able to address that. I mean, in the end, we need more rural school aid. If we get good rural school aid, I think a lot of districts would feel a lot more comfortable. I mean, you wouldn't be hearing, talk about reductions and things like that. We'd be a lot more comfortable. But what it needs to be is part of the state budget every year. It needs to be a reliable part of the state budget every year, not something that gets shifted around like a political football. Because like that's what it is right now, frankly. And I mean, I don't know how it gets there. It's going to require advocacy. It's going to require a lot of voices to, send this message to elected officials throughout the budget process. Here's some of our, I put a couple charts in here just to show you how we use other funding sources to try to keep the assessments as low as they possibly can. So over time, I've got school choice, circuit breaker, other revolving accounts are like our athletic revolving account, our food service account. These are grants here, and this is E&D use. So each color represents a different year from FY23 all the way up to what we're proposing for next year. You could see school choice has steadily increased over the last few years, but you get to a point where you're spending more than you're taking in, and that formula only lasts for so long, which is why we're proposing to use a little bit less next year. You see circuit breaker goes up dramatically because in the beginning we weren't getting that much reimbursement, but we have more kids with needs now, and we get more reimbursement as a result. So the last couple of years, it's been kind of flat, but next year we have the money there. So, we're going to shift some special ed tuition to that from school choice. Other revolving accounts are pretty flat. It's really kind of based on how our food service program is doing, really. Grants you see way high a couple of years ago and back down. This was all COVID relief money that doesn't exist anymore. So that's why the grants are down. And then E&D kind of shifts between, couple years a little higher, 1 year a little lower, back up higher, really depending on what we certify. It fluctuates by a couple $100,000 here and there. But, we do the best we can to use other funding sources to offset our budget. This is just a little historical info about E&D use, like how much we certified and how much was put towards the following year's budget. Going back all the way to 2017, you'll see a couple of years we don't use much at all, but generally it falls around like the 800 to 900 range. But with certifying less this year, that number, we certainly can't use 900,000 like we did this year. That number's got to be lower. This is like a school choice projection chart just to show you what's going to happen if we keep spending as much as we are every year. So at the end of last year, we had 1.348 in there. Based on what our budget is this year and kind of what's happened so far during the year, at the end of this year, we're going to have just over $1 million in there. So we're about a $300,000 swing there. Going into next year, our revenue is projected to go down. We're proposing about 827,000 of spending, which means we're still spending more than we're taking in. End of next year, we're at 934. If we continue that formula for the next couple of years, by the end of FY29, we're going to have half of what we have at the end of this year. So, this is just to show people that if, we can't exhaust school choice because eventually it's not going to be there anymore. I can't see the revenues going up much because we're losing students, and I just don't see that revenue increasing that much over the next few years. Every year we kind of address why our budget's going up to the extent that it is. So I've broken it down into several categories. One piece is the debt service because we have to start paying back what we borrowed this year. Health insurance is going up about $176,000 for our current group of staff. The delta between what we can use from E&D, what we can use from school choice, rural aid, and circuit breaker, if more circuit breaker, but less of the other funding sources, if you add all that up together, it's about a $292,000 piece. C-Tech tuition is going up about 94. Personnel cost increases is about 709 with all our current collective bargaining agreements. The staff I had to add to, absorb grant shortfalls is about 84,000. Having the additional, we have 2 SROs. Adding the second one to the district budget would cost about an additional $50,649. School choice tuition's going up $195. There's some curriculum testing materials that we used to pay for with COVID relief money, but the problem is those licenses, you could buy like a 3 to 5 year license span, which was great, when you had ESSER grants and you had the money to do it, but the licenses then run out and you then have to rebuy them, or else you're going to have to switch your curriculum, which is also a costly endeavor. Charter school tuition, about 56,000 more than this year. And our Hampden County pension assessment for retirement for next year would be about 117. So if you add all that up, that accounts for pretty much the entire amount of the what the budget's going up from this year to next. A couple of the real significant things in special ed tuition for out of district students. It's about $100,000 increase over what we have this year. The state sets those rates. We have to pay them. We have $21,000 going towards homeless transportation. I have to base that off the current students we have. I mean, students who are experiencing homelessness, they come and go. I mean, we may not have any students experiencing homelessness next year, but we do have to budget for it, and we have to make sure we account for it properly because you can get reimbursed for part of it. So I want to make sure we do that. The personnel cost increases I highlighted on the last slide. Health insurance I also highlighted on the last slide. Little bit of info about grants. We currently have 24.7 FTE funded by grants or revolving accounts. That's quite a bit. Our whole workforce, I believe, not including substitutes, is 258.3 FTE, I believe. So that's quite a bit funded out of grants. The cost of this next year is almost 1.3 million. We had a grant shortfall of 115,961. I added 84 of that to the general fund, and I put the rest in school choice because part of someone's salary was already being paid out of there. So I just kind of moved the whole thing there to keep it clean. And this just shows that, in terms of our revolving funds, we're generally spending more than we're taking in. School choice, we're projected to take in 715. Right now, we're going to spend about 827. So our bottom line will decrease 111,592. Circuit breaker, I think we'll take in 600,000. I mean, that's a rough estimate right now, but I'm pretty comfortable with it. We're proposing about $821,000 of expenditures out of there, which means we'll have 221,000 less. That's okay. I mean, we have to spend a certain amount every year. You can't go into the following, or you can't end a year with more than you had at the beginning of a year plus what you got during the year. So basically you have to spend the amount you had at the beginning of the year by the end of the year. And then rural aid, again, not to beat a dead horse, but I don't think we should budget for any higher than that. For capital requests for next year, none of this will be new. The Woodland boiler replacement will be taking place. We borrowed the $323,000 for the design of the Woodland boiler, the study for the SRS boiler, and then next year they'll do this the design of that. They've done the SRS study. They haven't done the design yet, but we borrowed the money for that already. That's part of the 323. I should have the estimate for the Woodland boiler pretty soon. Right now, the estimate is at 600,000, which we would have to borrow to replace that. And then the track is the other thing that was deferred from last year. That was part of our request last year, but due to warrant article language and the DOR assessing that, that there was it was mucky, I guess would be the best word I would use, and the towns, wanted to defer it to next year. So we still do have that there because that project does have to happen. And, would just make sure that the warrant articles are written accordingly this year, so everything goes off smooth. All right, thank you all, not only for coming tonight, but for your continued commitment to our students and staff in our district. Year in and year out, we could not operate without the support of our towns and of course our staff members that are here. And now we'll open it up to questions. Yes.
Somebody's gotta be first, right? I just got two. You said 11 positions were let go?
This year was
This
8.
year.
Yes, in this current year, we have 8 fewer than last year.
Could you share what those positions were?
There were 2 instructional coaches. Is Deanna here? No, 2 Where's Deanna? They were mostly up at the regional school. I can't remember off the top of my
I
head.
think there was a science position,
Science position.
Woodshop.
wood
English.
shop,
Woodshop.
English. Counselor.
English.
2 coaches.
2 coaches.
Counselors. Guidance counsel.
Yeah.
Guidance position.
All right, so we got wood shop, guidance, science, ELA, coach, that gets us to 6.
Retirees.
Math.
Math.
And sometimes that's a retiree not being replaced. It's not always
Right.
people.
And then there was one more.
Was there an interventionist?
No, we brought that one back. Technology. It was a technology teacher.
Yeah.
In technology.
And the position cuts this year primarily affected the regional school. The coaches would have been, I guess, more district-wide employees, but yeah, that would be the list.
Okay. Second, average class size for 3 schools. Do you have a idea?
Yep. So at Woodland, the average class size this year is,
It's these classes.
okay, so kindergartens at about 16 kids, first grade, is this first grade that we're looking at this year or for next year?
No, this year.
Okay, first grade is 16, second grade is,
Any of that, that's next year. Sorry, Jen.
you read it. You put it
Sorry,
on.
I apologize. Kindergarten, between about 16, first grade is 17 and 18. Second grade, 17 and 18, third grade, 21, 17, 19, 17, fourth grade, 18, 16, 17. Fifth grade are all 18, sixth grade, 18, 20, 21, 21, 20. Seventh grades run anywhere from 14 to 21 in a section, eighth grade, anywhere from 13 to 21. The high school, I am not able to do 7 to 9 to 12 that way because of things like AP that really skew the numbers. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No, that's okay. And the problem is if we, when we started here, there were 6 teachers at every grade level. So we were able to take in about 10 school choice students every year per grade. We take in about 5 now, because we're trying to fill some of the seats in our classrooms. If we ever go down to 4 teachers at a grade level, we're not going to be able to take any school choice students. So that will have a serious impact on our school choice numbers, and it will be worse than what Nick predicted on his slides.
So you're not filling 5 slots per grade level? For school choice,
Right now,
are they full?
yeah, now they're
Yeah.
full.
Okay, but you're not predicting they will be next year?
We take as many as they can, as
They stay.
they
year to
stay.
year.
Yeah,
Like you have,
Yeah.
if you call, I can tell you, like in one grade, we have 13 school choice kids. It varies by grade to grade, how many school choice.
She was saying if they reduce the number of teachers per
Right.
grade by
No,
one,
those kids would
then that
stay.
would significantly limit the opportunity for us to bring in.
Because right now you have.
Yeah, once
Yeah.
they're here, they're here,
You
they're
don't have all the
ours.
numbers.
yeah, we just wouldn't be able to, bring new ones in and replenish in the lower grade levels, right? As, kids matriculate if we reduce teachers down to 4.
Right, so like, for example, I could go through kindergarten, there's 5 school choice. First grade, there's 6. In second grade, there's 11. In third grade, there's 3. In fourth grade, there's 8. In fifth grade, there's 6. In sixth grade, there's 13. In seventh grade, there's 5. In eighth grade, there's 17. In ninth grade, there's 10. In 10th grade, there's 7. In 11th grade, there's 17. And in 12th grade, there's 14.
We take in a lot of kids and
Yeah.
a lot of districts lose far more than they take in.
The total is.
I think we're at
It's about
about,
160.
yeah, we're lucky we take in far more than we lose. A lot of districts are the opposite. They're, you know, they lose 130 and they only take in 50.
Do you know off the top of your head what we're sending in?
Yes, we are sending out roughly 60, of which 20 are not going to a brick and mortar, they're attending a virtual school. So I think that they're not choosing to go to a neighboring community, they're choosing a different type of schooling that fits with often their family's lifestyle. We have some people like involved in high-end hockey, we've got a gymnast, we have someone who's a race car
Race car,
driver.
Yeah.
Yeah, believe it or not, so we're really losing about 40 to a neighboring district. And so that includes like kids going to BVPA for a charter school, et cetera.
Yeah.
And the other thing to notice is the kids, like you see our school choice amount going up. That's because a typical school choice student, if they go to a brick and mortar building, it's about $5,000 to send them. If they attend a virtual school, the cost per student is $12,000 for school, 13,000 for school choice. So it looks like we have like a lot more going out, but what we actually have is a lot more kids attending the virtual school, which is an additional 8,000 per student.
Can you explain that, please?
Virtual school?
Yeah, virtual.
So a
It's
virtual
just a brick and
school.
mortar that has heat and lights.
It does.
We hope
Go
that
there.
their house does
Yeah.
too, where they're attending virtual.
So what virtual school is, you could travel the country and be attending a mass public school. Think about when we were in COVID and people were at home learning.
Yeah.
That there are actual 2 schools in Massachusetts that you could attend as a homeschooled, not a homeschooled, as a school choice student. And our kids get to go there, but like they could be at a NASCAR meet in California, but still attend their classes at the virtual school because it's all on the computer. It's not with a teacher in a building. They never come to a physical school.
That's what I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's more money that way.
The state sets the rates.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do about it, unfortunately.
These
And-
virtual schools are probably like in Boston, in the highest rent place that they could get.
That's not my
No,
problem.
well, unfortunately, that's the problem. Why does it cost more for them to go to a virtual school than in a spot where we've got to pay heat, light, electricity?
They got a big bump this year too. Like it wasn't always this much, but in this particular year, they got a big bump. And we won't know next year's rates until probably May. They're not out yet.
Thank you.
And can
You're
I just talk about the Open State thing too? And the other thing that we're seeing with special education is in the past, we talked about the rising cost of special education when you went up 14%. Schools, private special ed schools are now doing this thing called restructuring. And the way they restructure is they make their plan and they submit it to DESE, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And they'll look at their plan and they'll say, wow, we like this plan works. And then they send the plan, because I asked in a meeting on the legislative committee, I said, how many times do you say no to these private schools restructuring? And they said, we really don't. So then they send it to the OSD, and then OSD doesn't come up with just that percentage increase that we used to talk about. They come up with a restructuring cost. So there is a school out there that we just got a bill for an additional,
For this year,
for this year.
like 30 grand for the rest of the year. Like their daily rate went up that much. Or from like March 1st to June, 18th or whenever the last day of school is, it's gonna cost like almost 30 grand more than we had anticipated.
That's their restructuring. And there's nothing you can do. And my legislative committee, we've met with DESE and OSD, and they both go like this. So I just want to make you aware of that is something that is happening in education.
So what is the enrollment in special ed?
Robin?
For out of district kids or in district kids?
Yeah, are you asking total enrollment or like which enrollment number are you
So
asking?
total number that go into the budget, right? We're talking about them as a cost. And first of all, did the enrollment go up in special ed?
From this year or last year to this year?
Yeah.
In terms of amount of students on IEPs, I don't think it dramatically went up, but sometimes what happens is if a student's needs rise to the level where they need to attend an out of district school, where their needs can't be met here, that is what drives up the cost. I think currently right now, and Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, we have 14 kids out of district
Yes.
And in,
in district on IEPs.
250.
Yeah, but
but I thought you said too that the transportation, like there's one less.
there's one less route.
Right.
There's one less route next year in the budget.
One less route, okay, does that mean because we had a fewer out of district and more in?
It's based on our current use, okay, because our transportation assessment comes from the Lower Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative. And when they build their budget, they have to do it, it's basically a snapshot in time. So right now, we're using one less route than we were a year ago. So they're basing next year's budget off of that. Now, the good side to that is if we have to add a route next year, we won't have to pay for that. Like they've assessed what they've assessed. Provided they
For
can.
the year after.
Yes, we end up paying for it the year after. That will come out in the FY 28 wash. So it's always kind of a year behind. So that's why there's one less route for next year. It's because, and that I believe primarily is in district students because the out of district number didn't go down. So
We could have the same number of kids, but one less route depending on where let's say you had 2 kids graduate and 2 kids come in, but where they're located allows them to condense and lose a route.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bet that that's what happened, because the
Yep.
numbers may have stayed the same, but because of where the kids live, they didn't need an extra route, which means we save a little bit of money.
a lot of times it's based on where the preschool students live. Because they can consolidate those routes.
So one more, what is the total number of employees?
You said two.
Well, we have 258 FTE, that's full-time equivalent. But there's a few more people than that because there's a couple 0.6 FTE staff members. That doesn't include substitute teachers or some custodians or sub paras. I would say about 300 total if you include all of the folks that aren't in the FTE count.
Yeah.
Yep.
When you're talking about grant funding, being at its height during COVID and how it keeps continuously declining. Have you eliminated the programs or the positions that were created during COVID? Did you create permanent programs and positions using temporary?
I'm going to defer to Jen on that. 'Cause I wouldn't-
No, Karen, we were conscious of that because we knew it was gonna be a fiscal cliff. What we did do was create 3 special ed in district programs that we are now funding out of rural school aid. And last year, when they cut the rural school aid, that severely impacted our in-district programming. We were able to cover it with our budget, but it means that when like a teacher would leave throughout the year, we couldn't refill that teacher's position because we had to make up the loss for what they did to rural aid. We based our budget off of a 16 million expectation, and when they cut it down to 12, we lost about 130,000. 90 to 130 it was a lot. 91,000. That's the cost of a teacher. And we don't go back to you and ask for it, but we only did create 3 teaching positions with the ESSER funds.
And what you've got to understand is from that special ed side, the more programs that we can create here in district, in the long run, saves us more money. On the short side of it, you'll see an increase in the labor costs, or you'll see an increase in the budget. We added a program that costs money. The challenge is if we didn't add that program, it would cost that amount plus 50%. So it's one of those things, like when we went through ESSER, we were conscious, like Jen said, what we're doing. We needed to add a 504 coordinator. We knew we needed to do it. We had an opportunity that during ESSER, that position was in one of those ESSER funds. So it was basically we added a position we knew we needed, but we were able to get it for 2-3 years for free. then it had to go into the budget. But we didn't,
That's
we
School
didn't.
choice, we don't.
Yeah,
put it in
oh,
the budget.
okay. So either way, it's in there. We didn't go and create extra stuff just to do it because we had extra money. And then now we're stuck with it after Esther's gone away. Every one of those decisions, there was a conscious sort of plan as to what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Now, I've got another question. People might well be here, but we were talking about the enrollment in all the schools. Now, 15 years ago, we had close to 1,800 students. Now we're down to about 1,100, 1,200 students. There's probably about 600 students. At what point to handle our fixed costs, get a handle on it or bring it down, are we gonna have to consider closing the school? We did it to Granville, but I'm just saying, there's 600 students.
No,
Yeah.
there's no building to close, Karen.
That's a third of the students.
We cannot fit the three schools into two buildings. That's just not
Okay.
feasible.
Like I said, I had to throw it out there.
Yeah, that,
You
no.
know, there's.
Yeah,
It's
Going down.
It's not a bad question. I mean, from a pure mathematical perspective, we continue to lose 20 to 30 kids every year. And what I told Karen before, I said, look, this may not work right now because the
Right.
math doesn't work. But if that degradation continues for the next 10 to 12 years,
Yeah.
now it's probably going to be something where it's like, okay, at a certain point, if nothing changes, you might be in a position where it's like, okay, we need to reset up what's going on. We may not need 3 buildings.
At
We may
most,
only need 2.
right, most school districts that are about 600 kids have a K through 6 and then a 7 through 12. If you look at like Lenox and you look at Lee, they're about 600 kids. They have 2 schools.
Palmer does the same thing.
Yeah,
Good.
but not when there's still 1,200
Yeah.
kids. Unless we get 2 schools the size of SRS, and we just don't.
Nick, just, do you know where we stand this year for a percent of minimum requirement spending? I mean, last year you had an interesting chart where we stood.
Oh, the net school spending. Yeah, we were at 102 last year. It was about 105 this year. So it went up a little bit. That data is always a couple of years behind, unfortunately, because it's based on end of the year report data, and those aren't finalized until a year after they're due. So right now, the FY24 numbers would be the ones, and it was about 105.
If Nick, if I remember, as the town's minimal local contribution goes up and our number on our budget goes, that's going to increase that's going to continue to increase that percentage, correct?
It should, yeah.
Because they're trying to make up from the state perspective, the hold harmless gap that we have
4 million.
is still pretty severe.
Mhm.
So all of this is why our minimal local contributions keep going up by a pretty hefty rate, because the state is looking to try to balance that. So it at some point, it's gonna get absorbed, but our number is gonna continue to move up from that because of that situation that we've got.
And when I started here, Rob, we were at a 5 million hold
Yeah.
harmless.
Oh, I
and now
remember.
that- Yeah, now we're at about 4 million.
So what does that number mean, the 100, 102? Is that a percentage of something?
It's a percentage of your required net school spending every year. Basically, the state sets a number. They look at all kind of stuff and they say, well, this is the minimum you should be spending on educating your students. And you got to hit 100%. That's like the bare minimum. So anything above that, 100, 102, whatever. We were hovering around 102 for a while. Now I said, about 105. And there's districts in the state that are 181. But
Over 200.
those are your, a lot of Metro West communities outside of Boston, and they have the tax base where they're able to pay way more than the state says they have to.
So how is the local contribution among the communities calculated? Is it based on enrollment and, the local contribution, or can you explain that?
It's based on, there's a lot of factors. Enrollment's one of them. A lot of it's like property valuation within the towns, as well as projected growth within the towns. And, it's a lot of it's like Department of Revenue data that they share with the Department of Education. And they look at each town for what they call equalized valuation. And then there's a municipal growth factor based on new growth from one year to the next. And they kind of throw all that in a blender and determine what they believe the towns can afford. And that's where that minimum comes in. And then the rest of it, if you take your minimum local contributions and you add the chapter 70 funding, that's your minimum net school spending number that you got to hit every year. Now, that does not necessarily mean that's what you need to operate. And they call it a foundation budget for a reason. And I'm going to quote the Associate Commissioner of DESE right now. And he says this, he says, it's called a foundation budget for a reason. You can have a house with a foundation, but you probably want some walls and a roof to go with it, So like the difference between operating and what the state says your minimum is that there's two different things there. And that's where the discretionary pieces and the other revenue sources come in to try to fund that. I hope that answers your question.
So each grade has roughly 75 students? So you have 400 person class.
Grade 6.
Why can't we eliminate one classroom and put 22 students per class? And I'm gonna guess you have a paraprofessional. Some of the kids will probably be leaving for special ed, OT, PT, extra reading, extra math, adjustment counselor. So I'm gonna guess there's probably never all 16 kids in the class at the same time.
So our numbers go from anywhere from 78, 88, 89, 94, 87, 90, 104, 97, 97, 91, 92, 92, 97.
Right, so we could do 4 classes of 25.
Yeah, that's a lot of kids in an elementary classroom with the mental health issues that we're seeing, Jean. That would be a lot for a teacher.
Right, but every teacher's gonna have a para.
They don't have parents. No, there's one.
They don't have para, and the neat student doesn't come with their own.
All kindergarten has a paraprofessional.
But the other grades, some grade levels will have 2, and some grade levels will have 3 up until 6th grade. And then at the high school, starting 7 to 12, we have less than that. We have 1 or 2 per team.
So the mental health piece, they're not gonna go to the adjustment counselor, they're not gonna go out for some maybe quiet time, some one-on-one with Miss B, getting some reading. They're not all sitting there trying to figure it out on their own accord.
I think that's painting education with a broad brush right there. The teacher is still responsible for educating all 25 kids of those kids in that class reading, and she has to do it within that 90-minute block. And so saying it have to meet the individual needs of 25 kids, even if they leave for 20 minutes and come back in, that's behavior management. That's not education. Education is knowing where the kids are and making sure that they teach all the kids in their class. So even if a kid does leave, she might have 23 kids in the class at that time, but you're talking about behavior management and not educating, because when those other 2 kids come in that might have been gone, they still have to educate those kids and make up for where they were, what they missed when they weren't there.
I agree, but I also think that when you have 25, girls our age, 60 years old, Jen, we had 25, 30 kids in our class with one teacher, no aid. We all made it through and we had behaviors, you had special education, you had kids who were homeless, you had kids that weren't eating, you had kids that were transient, we all had it. Most of our teachers now have special education degrees. No, I don't know, I'm just saying.
Okay, most of our teachers do not have special education degrees, because that's why we have such a deficit in our special ed of getting licensed teachers. And 2, the mental health, I'm sure you watch the news. The mental health in children across the country is almost at an epidemic level with mental health and the screen issue. What education looks like post-COVID is nothing what it looked like pre-COVID. And I could have any one of these teachers stand up and tell you what it was like teaching before COVID and what it's like teaching now. I've never seen anything like this.
I mean, a lot of the issues have always been there, but what exists now that didn't, say 40 years ago is, kids that need to hit a dopamine from looking at a screen every 20 seconds. And if they don't get it, there's a lot of acting out. I mean, it's just.
Are we still using the pouches at high school and kids secure their phones?
Yep, they have pouches in 9 through 12. And we started that in 7th and 8th grade as well. So when they're in the classroom, they have to take their phones and put them in a pouch.
Yeah. Just saying, this price tag is gonna, town of Southwick's not gonna be able to carry it. And school committee doesn't, I mean, we don't spend any money on food, this line item's empty, it's just every year.
The food comes from a different account.
Say again?
Food comes from a different account that's funded independently.
Not by us.
Well, I mean, it's a self-sustaining program. It relies on federal reimbursement. But it's not in the red. I mean, years ago it was, prior to the meals being universally free, but right now it's self-sustaining. It's, I think you're probably referencing on the revenue section of the summary, right? That's because we're not using any food service money to offset anything else. That's all that means.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Was the hockey program a financial cut or was it a numbers?
Numbers. We didn't have the numbers to carry a team, but thankfully, Chicopee has been gracious enough to let our kids co-op with them. What happened was a lot of our kids play for Westfield now because they go to WPA.
Yeah.
So they play for Westfield's hockey team, and the few remaining ones we had, Chicopee's allowing us to co-op with them. So they have access to playing, which is really good, but they're just not in our budget anymore.
When you start, just as on the last discussion, when you start increasing class sizes, you also start losing school choice kids. Which is something
You
that's
do.
part of the
Yep.
equation as well.
I have two more quick things.
Sure.
You're projecting 14 again next year for out of district special ed?
Yeah, that's where we sit right now. I mean, I would love to. That's a moving target.
Every
But
week.
it could, that fluctuates from week to week. But right now we're sitting at 14.
My other question, am I seeing that right? We're funding both SRO positions out of the tier budget now?
That's the proposal, yes. And the reason for that is just to really be in line with the regional agreement and the way the cost should be allocated to the 3 towns. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak to that any more than me, but.
I'll speak to it only because I think I have a different opinion than everyone in this room. So I'm 100% in favor of carrying that first SRO on the town of Southwick's budget, like we've done since its inception. The second SRO should 100% be carried on the school budget, but that first SRO was placed here on the Southwick budget and has remained in our budget. There's also, I personally think we have an issue of control over that SRO. And in a distant future, when we have a different superintendent and a different board and they have a change of opinion on SROs, which are no longer necessarily legally required to be in the school, I do not want to put that choice in the hands of the superintendent and the school board, but rather with the voters of the town of Southwick in our school buildings. So that's why I've always advocated for that to remain in the Southwick budget, not in the regional budget. I know that has a financial impact to the town of Southwick. It's the hill I'm willing to die on. Thank you.
Is there anything else? Oh, yes, sir.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Joe.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I don't know yet. Depends on what the question is.
There's no question.
Oh.
I mean, I love seeing this back row. With the features for the most part. Thank you. It's great to see you.
Administrator.
But years ago, this didn't happen, right? It just didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, you know. Did we charge admission? No, we should have. So that's great to see that. And unfortunately, I thought we should have went around the room and introduced ourselves anyways. And we probably should when it's done, just for safe recording purposes, everything else that's out there. So my name is Joe Didi, currently sit on the finance. I'm always the last one to speak and I'm always the ass in the room. It's not gonna change. Mr. Moglen is correct. I get worried too about, God forbid, some budget cuts have to happen, really happen and we lose 2 SRO officers. We were a big advocate about the second one being shared, and I think that's as far as we wanted to bite that bone. Personally, it's great to see the second one there, and I know why you're doing it. And I don't think anyone in this room will ever intend on getting rid of any SROs. I truly don't. But there's always that but, and we're not all going to be here forever. That's a fact. They told me. So I'm with Doug on that. As far as our local contribution is $494. Technically, it's the minimum.
Oh, your required minimum local? Might have to go back to the.
Are you talking about the minimum local or are you talking about your percentage?
No, I don't like percentage. That's the next topic.
Okay.
494 is the bottom line. In a perfect world, if that's all you needed.
All right, so that would be your percentages. You want to go back to the minimum local, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yours will go up 471,698 over this current year.
Right, and the ask really is 1.3 million of Southwick's local piece.
The assessment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
1.3, okay. So I know some people in town and we all do here. And hey, I got his vice principal. He actually lives in South. How cool is that, right? And he didn't know the heck he was gonna be here when he was young. And here he is. So, and I'm impressed with that. That's nice. He's here, he pays taxes here, he sees it in his wallet every day. I don't have 1.3 million. We're going through the same insurance world that you guys went through, right? And I'm sure I saw, with the people need to get paid. We're gonna go through that soon, South, but on this side of the tracks. I can't speak for everyone, but 1.3 is a lot, and you guys do a great job up there. It sucks, doesn't it? And then there's not one smile up there, not one. And on the finance committee, there's not one either. These are tough times. They've been tough times. Everyone wants to raise taxes. Everyone wants to charge this, charge that. You guys, us, everyone in this room, we've had enough. There's only so much bleeding we can do. So I just beg you to relook at some numbers. I get it, I get it. But at the end of the day, it's a tall ask. And we'll bring it back, of course we will. I think we're meeting Saturday with you folks anyways. I just don't think we really have it. And I would hate to go to a town meeting. Now, I don't know, I swear, just have stuff voted down overall because, the people aren't comfortable. And they're not comfortable, right? And we're still a blue collar town. I don't care about the McMansions up the street. This kid live here, that the vice president. He's over here somewhere, so he's not in a McMansion, which is great to hear. I live in a 1,400 square foot house too, right? So that's just where we're living in this town, and I appreciate what you do, and I'll shut up. Have a good night. But please go around and introduce yourself. That would be great.
So,
Can I?
oh, yeah.
I have something I'd like to read, if that's okay.
Sure.
Just introduce yourself, Jen.
What?
Just introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Jen Gates. I am a resident of 15 years in this town. I'm also a teacher in this district for the last 15 years. I am a parent of a child in this district also. And I am a co-president of the Southwick Tallinn Granville Educators Association, Teachers Union. So I want to start by acknowledging something that's really important. I understand that this is a tight budget year. I understand that the decisions in front of you are difficult and there are no easy answers. But in moments like this, we have to stay grounded in one core idea. Education must remain a top priority in our towns, Southwick, Tallinn, and Granville. Level funding keeps our schools steady and strong. It means we don't have to cut teachers, eliminate programs, or reduce the opportunities our students rely on. It protects what is already working. Without level funding, we cannot sustain excellence. We are moving backwards. And that backward movement has real consequences. Larger class sizes, more programs, and reduced support for our students. It is true that enrollment has declined, but the data tells a more complete story. Right now, our class sizes are approaching levels that research consistently shows are best for student learning. Levels that improve engagement, increase achievement, and allow teachers to meet students' individual needs. Many districts are trying to get where we already are. Why would we choose to reverse that progress? From my own classroom experience, I can tell you that these class sizes matter. They allow me to connect with students, to notice when they are struggling, to adjust my instruction, and to truly support them, not just academically, but as people. If class sizes increase, that will change, and not in a small way. It fundamentally changes what teaching and learning will look like every day. We also need to talk about our programs. When we eliminate positions, we don't just reduce staffing, we eliminate opportunities for our students. We have already seen this with the loss of programs like Woodshop at the high school. That program gave students a chance to work with their hands, to build real-world skills, and to explore career pathways that are just as valuable as any college track. For some students, that is where they find success, that is where they feel seen. When we cut those programs, we take that away. And finally, I want to speak to something that has changed dramatically over my 15 years in this district, the needs of our students. Today's students require more support than ever before. We are seeing increased academic needs, greater social emotional challenges, and a rising demand for mental health services. More students need the individualized instruction, targeted interventions, and consistent adult support throughout the day. These are not extras, they are essential.
and meeting those needs requires people. When we cut positions, those needs do not go away. They become harder to meet. Support becomes stretched. Students fall through the cracks, and educators are asked to do more with less, which ultimately impacts the quality of education that we can provide. So when you think about this budget, I urge you to think beyond numbers on a page. Think about the student who finally understands the concept because their class size allowed for individual attention. Think about the student who found confidence in a program like Woodshop. Think about the student who needs a counselor, a specialist, or a support staff member to get through the day successfully. Level funding protects those students. It protects what is working in our schools right now. This is not the time to move backwards. This is the time to sustain the progress we have made and continue prioritizing the education of every student in this community. Thank you.
And I do want to share some things because we don't always get recognized for some of the great things that have happened here in our school district. We were recognized by the National Special Olympics for inclusion up at the Southwick Regional School. Shout out to you and the special education teachers and the staff and the students up there for making special education and our students feel part of a culture of belonging up there. Our AP scores, we also were recognized by the AP Honor Roll for having us, how many students? 40? Oh, it wasn't number.
We just have
Increase the percentage of students receiving a 3 or more on our AP exam and more kids participating in AP over and over. We adopted the science of reading at the end of COVID.
We're one of 63 schools that have achieved their pre-COVID MCAS scores. So one of 63 in the state who are at their pre-COVID rate already.
And we have 78% of our students K through 6 reading at grade level. That is the highest it has been in our 10 years here, my 10 years here. Our students are succeeding and it's wonderful. And it's because of the teachers and the hard work that they put in. I just need to shout out the wonderful things about our school district that not everybody gets to hear.
Your social media also. It's wonderful.
There have been some very, very, very well done posts recently.
We're trying to be forward thinking and allow people to see and get information out in a much broader fashion. So that's been a really big piece over the last few months that we're going to continue to do around just everything that's happening in our district and not just what's happening, but what we want people to know and how they can help.
But we did hear you, Mr. Dean. Yes. But I do have to tell you that our teachers are really awesome.
Move your towel and bring your kids, Joe. The towel and bring your kids.
But then your assessment's gonna go up.
Our tents were
That number, you know, we look at it, well, Colin's lucky, not necessarily.
Right.
The aggregate age on our fire department, 90.
Yeah. You know, in Southwick, our population really, I mean, I can go back 12 years, it was 9,500, we were told forever. Now we're told it's just under 10,000. So our numbers haven't changed human wise, but
The demographics.
our demographics, our police is more than they've ever had and a decent amount. I think we're comfortable with that. Our fire EMS is growing, but our population is aging out, So the needs are always there, like you said. I mean, everyone's asking, there's no doubt about it. And you guys are doing it great, regardless of the ball busting, I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Are you still fine? What are you doing? Want to go get some scratch tickets? It's working my family wants.
I just want to say that I agree with everything you said.
Oh, yeah.
I'm proud of you for how you said it. But I think everybody here agrees, in principle that we don't want to do anything that will harm the education or the opportunities for the students, right? But there's got to be creative ways. We have 300 employees and 9,000, citizens. We should think creatively about how to, like, ideas like just Jean threw us, right? About combining students into a class or shrinking or doing double duty or whatever it is, but there's gotta be creative solutions. Because, public education costs have only increased forever and nationwide, right? They've only gone up and education, results have gone down, but for Southwick, and I applaud you for that, right? You guys are doing a great job, and I really commend all of the hats you have to wear, but there's still gotta be ways to squeeze some more juice from that orange.
So
If we think creatively.
and I don't disagree with you. And just so that everybody's aware, like, this does not happen in a vacuum. It's not like we're at the school committee or at the finance committee level, and we're just like, oh, level budget, you can just kind of roll the carpet up and put it in front of you guys, and that's it. It doesn't happen that way, or at least not as long as I've been the chairman. Every single year, I task that administrative team. They come to us with a level budget. And then I ask them, okay, what's going on? What are the dynamics that we're dealing with now? What are the changes that have happened from this year to last year? Are there any opportunities for us to get creative so that we can still provide the great education that we've got, but can we do it in a little bit of a different way that won't affect it negatively, but might be able to restructure it in a way that's a little bit more cost effective? We did that last year. And they came forward with a number of positions that were going to be able to be eliminated. Some of them through attrition, some of them through creative structures that we've got. Now, just because they came up with it doesn't mean that we just said, okay, fine, let's just go with it. I went through in the finance meeting and we asked them, and their whole administrative team was there. And it was like, okay, we're going to go through every one of these positions. And you need to tell me that it's going to be okay from a structural perspective and from an impact to the kids' perspective. Do we have a plan to make sure and mitigate that there's not going to be a negative impact? We went through, there was 9, correct? We cut 8 and there was 9. We got to the 9th person. And when we talked about that, the answer from all of them were, well, if we cut this position, it's going to really negatively, and we didn't cut it. We're going through that process right now as well. We have a finance committee meeting tomorrow. We've already tasked and asked, this is our annual process that we're doing. Because like they said, because the way that the meetings have lined up this year, not everything is in the right bucket where it should be. We're having that meeting tomorrow. We're going through that process tomorrow. So we're going to present any adjustments that we get presented with and sort of look at from the finance subcommittee tomorrow are going to be discussed at the school committee meeting on Monday. And then we're going to wait a week before we vote on it. So that process that you're asking for is actively happening, and it's been done for the last 5 years. And it's going to continue. I'm with you. That's exactly what we need to be able to do. There's always a better way to be able to do things sometimes. And if we can take advantage of that and not have a negative impact, then from a fiduciary perspective, I'm obligated to do that because I am a taxpayer too. And I want to make sure that at least everybody sitting on this table, I know feels the same way. We take this job very seriously. We want to be able to be smart from a financial perspective, but we've got to be able to protect the kids and the educators and the process to be able to have a balance so that it works. So what you're asking for is actively happening.
Thanks, Rob.
I just want to kind of reinforce on this. The reason I asked that question about the minimum expenditures is this town or district is at the bottom of expenditures of any district in Western Mass. My daughter teaches one where there are 100, it's in Western Mass. It's 199% of the minimum spend. And I have a hard time figuring out what the difference is. I could probably come up with a few there. But the point is, doesn't mean there's no pain here when we look at this kind of increase, because what's the average salary increase in corporate America? 2%, 3%. So this hurts. Yet it's not like we're overspending here relative to the districts all around. And it ties into what you're talking about. If you want to attract out of district students, if you have a more stable, viable school program with some success, you have a better chance of sustaining grabbing those kids in the future. versus if you drop down.
Theoretically, if we continue to, I mean, and Jen, I think you either sent me an article or I read something somewhere that from a dealt in and out with respect to school choice, we bring in 4 times more than we send out. Right, so that's, if we could theoretically bring in another 40 kids, I propose that if we had to get more jobs, it would be great. That's a win-win for us because we'd actually bring in more money than it'll cost us. So we're doing a good job. You can tell that the district's doing a good job by looking at that in and outflow from the school choice side. And we are certainly way above the average with respect to the kids that we're attracting to this district. So we're doing, it's an anecdotal sort of, it's a way of being able to look at it to confirm from whether you're a select board member or whether you're a town person, are we doing a good job up here? Yes, because the kids are coming in. Are we being smart financially and being frugal from a financial perspective? Yeah, look at the cost, the percentage there. We're not looking to burn everybody and get to the 120s or the 140s or the 150s. We're doing a good job with what we've got here right now.
Yeah, when it comes to school choice, one of the biggest testimonies is when families do leave our school district, they ask if they can keep their kids here and school choice them here. So a lot of our school choice kids are people who lived in our community and left, but chose to keep their kids here. So that's always a nice feeling too.
Thank you.
Okay, do you want to go around the room and introduce yourselves now? Want to start over here with Ross and then we'll work our way through? Or you want to start at the front row? Start with Diane.
You just introduced me.
No, I didn't give your last name.
Diane Gale, Southwick Select Board. Nicole Parker, Town Administrator, Southwick.
Russ Anderson, Southwick Select.
I'm Moshe.
You're great parent.
Celeste.
I'm Celeste Sajon. I'm the town moderator, but I've had kids to go through the South schools. So I understand when he says the needs have changed. My kids did really well here. I'm really happy. So I have a lot of respect for the teachers. Great job.
Steve Delagostina, Talent Select Board. And my granddaughter does greatness. Any question? Hey, Pat, how?
Talent Select Board, Patrick Barrett.
Nicole Granville Select.
Laura Granville.
Aaron Adams, Granville Finance.
Doug Mogul, Southwick Select Board.
Jason Perone, town resident.
Gina Placek, Granville Finance.
Banish, Suffolk Police Chief.
Resident.
David Murphy, Southwick Finance.
Miriam Margiata, career facilitator and daily internship coordinator.
Beth McCarthy, counselor at the high school and Southwick.
Deanna Von Holt, principal at Southwick Regional. Karen Tomayo, South Finance.
Joe Didi, Finance Committee.
Chris Frazier, teach fourth grade here.
Oh, they know what's on.
Well, that first grade teacher. Rachel Garvey, I'm a resident parent and teacher.
Rachel Knowles, 20-year veteran. I teach at the history and film up at the regional school.
Decades for teacher, parent. Oh, and husband. Shannon Nomwitz, I'm co-president of Jen for the Teachers Association and group teacher.
Eric Heavey, supervisor, buildings grounds.
Chuck Jazak, vice principal here at Powder Mill School, parent and resident. Not of the McMansion, that's right. I'm actually Rob's neighbor, so that's, yeah. Sorry. I knew you guys would empathize. So.
Carolyn Roberts, school psychologist, parent, resident. My son was choice here for 6 years. We moved to Southwood, so to be residents.
Sean Root, principal here at Powder Mill.
Emma Rude, proud 1994 graduate of Southwood High School and principal of Woodland School. Robin Dunn, director of students.
So we just want to say we thank you all for coming. We're going to solicit all the feedback. We have a FinCom And if we want to get updated information on the budget, I would tune in Monday night. We're not going to vote on anything, but we're going to have our FinCom meeting tomorrow. And we'll present another round of the budget on Monday night. Taking the feedback that we heard tonight. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.